She was just a lonely orphan looking for pretty stones in the desert. Then she saw a hand sticking out of the sand, a biker, buried alive, left to die. She dug him out with her bare hands, not knowing he was her father's best friend. What she didn't know, saving his life would bring 7,000 riders to block an entire highway just for her. The desert heat shimmered like broken glass across the Arizona wasteland. Cora pressed her back against the crumbling wall of St. Teresa's home for children, counting to 30 before she made her move. Sister Margaret was on the phone in her office. Cora had exactly 4 minutes before the old woman finished her daily call to the diocese. 3, 2, 1. She slipped through the gap in the chain-link fence, the same gap she'd been using for 3 months, and ran toward the ravine where nobody ever looked for her. The other kids at St. Teresa's didn't understand why she kept disappearing into the desert. They thought she was weird. Maybe she was. But out here, away from the peeling paint and the smell of boiled cabbage, she could pretend her mother was still alive. Could pretend she wasn't just another forgotten kid in a building full of forgotten kids. The ravine was her secret place. Last week she'd found a piece of turquoise the size of her thumbnail. The week before that, a geode that sparkled pink when she held it up to the sun. Her mother used to say pretty stones were pieces of fallen stars. Cora kept them in a sock under her mattress, her only treasures. The sand crunched under her worn sneakers as she scrambled down the slope. The October sun was merciless, turning her dark hair hot enough to burn her neck. She was about to check her usual spot near the dried creek when something caught her eye. A flash of silver. Metal where there shouldn't be metal. Cora approached slowly, the way you might approach a rattlesnake. But as she got closer, her heart began to hammer. It wasn't metal. It was a zipper. And attached to that zipper was leather. Black leather, half buried in the sand. She dropped to her knees and started digging with her hands. The sand was hot and coarse, scraping her palms raw. More leather appeared. A sleeve. A shoulder. And then she screamed and fell backward. An eye. A human eye, staring up at her through a thin layer of sand. Cora's instinct screamed at her to run, but something held her in place. The eye blinked. Blinked again. Whoever this was, they were alive. She crawled forward on trembling hands and knees, digging faster now. She uncovered a face, weathered, stubbled, maybe 40 years old. His mouth was pressed against something. She wiped away more sand and saw it, a bent plastic straw, barely poking through to the surface. He'd been breathing through it like a snorkel. The man's lips moved. A rasping whisper emerged, "Help. Me." Oh God, Cora breathed. Her hands moved on autopilot, scooping away sand from around his head and neck. "Who did this to you?" Water, his voice was like sandpaper on concrete. Cora's canteen. She always brought it. She unscrewed the cap with shaking fingers and carefully trickled water across his cracked lips. He drank desperately, choking slightly. "Thank you," he gasped. "Keep digging. Please. I'll get help. I'll call." "No." The force of his voice startled her. His eyes, sharp despite his condition, locked onto hers. "No police. No sheriff. Promise me. But you're buried alive. Someone tried to." "The sheriff," he coughed, and sand sprayed from his mouth. "Sheriff's the one who buried me." Cora sat back on her heels, mind racing. Sheriff Hendricks came to St. Teresa's sometimes, bringing donations, smiling his big white smile. He'd given her a coloring book once for her birthday. He couldn't have. But the terror in this man's eyes was real. "What's your name?" she asked. "Harlan," another cough. "Harlan Cross." "What's yours?" "Cora." Cora Maddox, she looked around frantically. There's a work shed about 50 yards that way. It's abandoned. Maybe there's a shovel. Smart kid. Harlan's attempt at a smile was more of a grimace. How old are you? 9. Almost 10. She gave him another sip of water. Why would the sheriff do this to you? Because I saw something I shouldn't have. His eyes started to drift closed. Stay awake. Cora shook his shoulder through the sand. I'm going to get you out, but you have to stay awake. The pendant. Harlan's eyes had fixed on something at her throat. Cora's hand flew to the small silver wolf's head hanging from a chain around her neck. She never took it off. It was the only thing she had from her mother, the only proof that someone had once loved her. Where did you get that? Harlan's voice had changed. The desperation was still there, but now something else too. Shock. Maybe even fear. My mom gave it to me before she died. Why? Turn it over. The back. With trembling fingers, Cora flipped the pendant. She'd looked at the back 1,000 times, 3 letters engraved in neat script. W. M. Iron Wolves, Harlan whispered. That's the founder's mark. The original. He stared at her with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. What was your father's name? I never knew him. Mom never talked about him. She said he was gone before I was born. Cora felt tears prickling her eyes. Why? What does this have to do with everything? Harlan's laugh was bitter and broken. It has everything to do with everything. He struggled against the sand pinning his body. Kid, Cora, you just saved the life of a man who's been looking for you for 9 years. And your father. He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. Your father was John Maddox, founder of the Iron Wolves Motorcycle Club. And he was my best friend. The desert seemed to tilt sideways. Cora's father? She'd imagined him 1,000 different ways, a soldier, a cowboy, a nobody who didn't care. But never this. He's dead, Harlan continued, his voice strengthening with urgency. Murdered 6 years ago. By the same man who buried me here. Your father tried to expose a weapons smuggling ring, and Sheriff Hendricks made sure he never could. His eyes bore into hers. That pendant you're wearing? It's worth more than gold to a lot of people. It's a legacy. And if Hendricks knows you have it, if he knows who you are, you're in danger. Cora's world was cracking open like one of her geodes, revealing something sharp and glittering inside. Her father. Murdered. The sheriff. A motorcycle club. And her, right in the middle of it all. She stood up, brushing sand from her knees, and looked toward the abandoned work shed. The sun was starting its descent, painting the desert in shades of amber and rust. Sister Margaret would have noticed she was gone by now. There would be consequences when she got back. But right now, a man was buried alive in the Arizona desert. A man who'd known her father. A man who'd just handed her a truth she'd been searching for her whole life. I'll be back with a shovel, Cora said, her voice steadier than she felt. And then you're going to tell me everything about my father. Harlan's cracked lips formed something that might have been a smile. That's John Maddox's daughter, all right. Stubborn as they come. Cora ran toward the shed, her pendant bouncing against her chest, the silver wolf catching the dying light. She didn't know it yet, but she'd just started something that would bring 7,000 riders to a single stretch of highway. She didn't know it yet, but she'd just stopped being an orphan. The work shed's door hung crooked on one hinge, revealing a dark interior thick with the smell of rust and forgotten things. Cora squeezed through the gap, her eyes adjusting to the dimness. Garden tools lay scattered like broken bones, a rake with missing teeth, a coil of rotted rope, and there, leaning against the far wall, a shovel with a cracked handle. She grabbed it and ran back, her sneakers kicking up small explosions of sand with each step. The sun sat lower now, a fat orange ball bleeding across the horizon. She had maybe an hour before full darkness. Maybe less before Sister Margaret sent someone looking for her. Harlan's eyes were closed when she reached him. "Hey!" Cora dropped beside him, touching his face. His skin was fever-hot. "Wake up." His eyelids fluttered open. "Thought you weren't coming back." "I said I would." She positioned the shovel and started digging around his torso, careful not to hit him. The sand was looser here, easier to move. "Nobody breaks promises to me. I hate that. Your father was the same way." Harlan's voice strengthened as she worked. "Made a promise to clean up this town. Died keeping it." Cora's arms burned, but she kept digging. She'd uncovered his chest now, and that's when she really saw the patch on his leather jacket. A snarling wolf's head, identical to her pendant, with the words "Iron Wolves" arched above it and "Arizona" below. The leather was quality, thick and worn but well maintained. This wasn't some costume. This was real. "Tell me about the club," she said, scooping away sand from his left arm. Harlan tried to move his fingers. They twitched weakly. "Right now, focus. Get me out, then we run. If Hendricks knows I'm not dead, why would he bury you alive instead of just shooting you?" Harlan's laugh was dark. "Because he's smart. No body, no investigation. Out here, I could have died from exposure, gotten lost, anything. Accidents happen in the desert all the time." He paused. But he didn't count on a little girl with sharp eyes. 20 minutes later, Cora had exposed Harlan down to his waist. He was able to help now, using his freed arms to push himself up while she dug around his legs. The sand had compacted around his lower body, making it harder, but Cora attacked it with the fury of someone who'd spent her whole life being told she was too small to matter. Almost there, she grunted, widening the hole around his knees. "Stop!" Harlan's hand shot out, gripping her wrist. "Listen." Cora froze. In the distance, so faint she might have imagined it, an engine. No, 2 engines. Vehicles moving slowly across the desert floor, searching. "They're coming back," Harlan whispered. "Hendricks must be checking his work." Terror spiked through Cora's chest. "We're not done. We're done enough. Pull." She dropped the shovel, grabbed his hands, and pulled with everything she had. Harlan pushed with his legs, and together they fought the sand's grip. His right leg came free, then his left. He rolled away from the hole, gasping, his face contorted in pain. "Your legs." "Bruised, not broken." He tried to stand, stumbled, caught himself. "How far to that shed?" "Maybe 60 yards. But there's no back door, no." "Not the shed." Harlan was scanning the ravine, his eyes sharp despite the pain. "Those boulders. The big ones near the edge. Help me." Cora ducked under his arm, taking as much of his weight as her small frame could handle. They moved in an awkward 3-legged race toward a cluster of massive red boulders jutting from the ravine's edge. The engine sounds grew louder. Headlights swept across the desert above them. "Behind here," Harlan directed, and they squeezed into a narrow gap between 2 boulders. The space was barely large enough for both of them. Cora could feel Harlan's heart hammering through his jacket. The engines grew deafening. Then stopped. "Check the hole." A voice, deep, authoritative. Cora recognized it instantly. Sheriff Hendricks. "Someone's been digging, boss." A second voice, younger. "Fresh tracks. Small. Like a kid." "A kid?" Hendricks's voice went cold. "Out here? Maybe from that orphanage. St. Teresa's is only 2 miles east." Silence. Then, "If someone found him and he's still alive, we've got a problem. Fan out. Search the area." Cora pressed herself against the boulder, barely breathing. Harlan's hand covered hers, a silent message of solidarity. Or maybe comfort. She squeezed back, her fingers finding the edge of his jacket patch, tracing the embroidered wolf. Footsteps crunched through sand. A flashlight beam swept past their hiding spot, missing them by inches. Cora could see the man holding it, tall, wearing a deputy's uniform, a gun on his hip. Not a real deputy, she realized. The uniform was wrong. Too clean. Too new. Nothing here, the fake deputy called out. Keep looking. Hendrix's shadow fell across the ground 20 feet away. Someone dug him up. Someone knows. Minutes crawled past like hours. Finally, mercifully, the engine started again. The vehicles pulled away, their lights fading into the gathering darkness. Harlan waited until the sound completely disappeared before he spoke. You saved my life twice in one day, Cora Maddox. You said the sheriff killed my father. Cora turned to face him in the narrow space. I want to know everything. I want to know why. And I want to know about the wolves. Harlan studied her face, this small, fierce girl with sand in her hair and her father's determination in her eyes. Your father didn't just start a motorcycle club. He started a brotherhood built on one principle: protect the innocent, expose the corrupt. He died for it. He touched her pendant gently. That mark means you're one of us. Always were. We just didn't know where you were. And now you do. Now I do. Harlan's expression hardened. Which means we need to move. I've got a bike hidden near here, supplies stashed. Can you keep a secret from everyone at that orphanage? Cora thought of Sister Margaret's disapproving frown, the tasteless meals, the cold dormitory. She thought of 9 years of being nobody. I've been keeping secrets my whole life, she said. What's one more? Harlan waited until full darkness wrapped the desert before moving. The stars emerged overhead, hard and bright as diamonds scattered across black velvet. Cora had never seen them so clearly. At St. Teresa's, the floodlights in the yard washed them out. Stay close, Harlan whispered, limping forward. Watch where I step. They moved along the ravine's edge, Harlan using the boulders for support. His breathing was labored, each step clearly painful, but he didn't complain. Cora noticed how he kept scanning the horizon, checking their six like soldiers did in movies. How long were you buried? She asked quietly. Since yesterday morning. 28 hours, give or take. His voice was matter of fact, but Cora heard the tremor underneath. Thought I was done. Kept thinking about things left unfinished. Like finding me? Like finding you. He stopped, pointing toward a shape in the darkness. There. That outcropping. What Cora had taken for another boulder formation revealed itself as the remains of an old mining operation, a collapsed entrance, rusted equipment, and beside it, more tarps than seemed necessary. Harlan pulled them back, exposing what lay beneath. A motorcycle. Even in the starlight, Cora could see it was beautiful, all chrome and black metal, the wolf emblem painted on the gas tank. Your father gave me this bike, Harlan said softly, running his hand along the seat. Told me a man's ride is his freedom. Can't cage what won't be caught. He looked at Cora. He was talking about you too. Your mother. He knew Hendrix was closing in, so he sent you both away. Meant to follow after he finished gathering evidence. But he never got the chance. Cora's throat tightened. Mom never told me any of this. She was protecting you. If Hendrix knew John Maddox had a daughter, Harlan trailed off, checking the bike's condition. The club looked for you after your mother died. Checked every foster home, every orphanage in 3 states. St. Teresa's wasn't on our radar. It's private, Catholic. Different system. How did you end up buried alive? Harlan's jaw clenched. I got careless. Been investigating Hendrix for 3 years, picking up where your father left off. 2 nights ago, I spotted something big, a weapons convoy moving through the desert. Military-grade hardware, headed somewhere off books. I got photos, video evidence. Enough to bring down Hendricks and his whole operation. He met her eyes. But someone tipped him off. They grabbed me yesterday morning, took everything I had, and decided to make me disappear. The evidence. Gone. They took my phone, my camera, everything. His expression turned grim. Without it, I've got nothing but accusations. And Hendricks owns this town, the judges, the deputies, half the state legislature. My word against his? I'm just a biker with a record. Cora's mind raced. You said there were more iron wolves. In other states. Yeah. Scattered across the country. But without proof, without a reason to mobilize, he shook his head. They've got lives, families, jobs. Can't just call them in for a vendetta. But you could call them for me. Harlan went still. What? You said this pendant means something. That I'm one of you, always was. Cora pulled the chain over her head, holding the silver wolf up to the starlight. So use it. Call them. Tell them John Maddox's daughter needs help. Kid, I can't put that on you. You're 9 years old. And I just saved your life. Cora's voice cracked with emotion. You think I want to go back to St. Teresa's and pretend nothing happened? Pretend I don't know my father was murdered? Pretend I don't know the sheriff who brings us Christmas candy is a killer? Tears streamed down her face now, hot and angry. I'm not nobody. Not anymore. So stop treating me like I'm too small to matter. The desert was silent except for the wind moving through the rocks. Harlan stared at this fierce little girl with sand in her hair and her father's fire in her eyes, and something shifted in his expression. You're right, he said finally. You're absolutely right. He held out his hand. Let me see the pendant. Cora dropped it into his palm. Harlan turned it over, examining the engraved letters in the starlight. Then he did something unexpected. He pressed a specific spot on the wolf's head, and the pendant split open like a locket. Inside was a tiny chip, no bigger than a fingernail. Radio encryption key, Harlan explained. Your father gave these to the original 12 members. Knew we might need to scatter, need a way to call everyone home without alerting the wrong people. He moved to the bike's saddlebag, pulling out a small ham radio. Haven't used this frequency in 6 years. Not since. Since my father died. Yeah, Harlan inserted the chip into the radio, adjusted frequencies. Static crackled through the speaker. He lifted the microphone, hesitated, then looked at Cora. You sure about this? Once I send this signal, there's no going back. People will come. Questions will be asked. And Hendricks will know we're coming for him. Cora thought about her empty room at St. Teresa's. The bland meals. The pitying looks from the nuns who saw her as another lost cause. She thought about her mother, dying without telling her the truth. About her father, murdered for trying to do the right thing. Send it, she said. Harlan nodded and pressed the transmit button. His voice, when he spoke, was clear and strong. Iron Wolves, this is Harlan Cross, Arizona chapter. Emergency Protocol Alpha. Repeat, Alpha Protocol. He paused, then added words that would change everything. The founder's cub has been found. John Maddox's daughter is alive. And she needs her pack. He released the button. Silence answered. Then, faintly, from somewhere far away, copy that, Arizona. We're coming home. Then another voice, Oregon chapter confirms. Rolling out at dawn. Another, Texas here. Already on the road. Cora listened to the voices multiply, confirmations coming from across the country, from people who'd loved her father, who'd made promises they intended to keep. Her legs suddenly felt weak, and she sat down hard on the sand. Harlan crouched beside her. Welcome to the Iron Wolves, kid. Harlan killed the radio and began packing his gear with swift efficiency despite his injuries. We've got maybe 3 hours before Hendricks realizes I'm really gone. When he does, he'll lock down every road out of here. I need to go back, Cora said. To St. Teresa's. They'll notice I'm missing. You can't, Harlan's voice was firm. Hendricks knows someone dug me up. Small footprints near an orphanage 2 miles away. He's not stupid. He'll put it together. But my things. What things? Harlan looked at her directly. What do you have there that's worth dying for? Cora opened her mouth, then closed it. The truth was brutal and simple, nothing. A few library books that weren't even hers. The stones she'd collected, pretty but worthless. Some donated clothes that never fit right. Nothing that mattered. Nothing that was truly hers except the pendant now back around her neck. That's what I thought, Harlan's expression softened. I know it's hard. But right now, going back is suicide. For both of us. He lifted the motorcycle upright, checking the engine with practiced hands. The bike was old but well maintained, its chrome dulled by a thin layer of desert dust. Cora watched him work, noticing how his movements grew steadier as adrenaline pushed past the pain. Where are we going? Old gas station about 15 miles west. Been abandoned since the interstate rerouted traffic in '09. I keep supplies there, food, water, medical kit, backup phones. He swung his leg over the bike, wincing. It's defensible, off the grid. We can hole up there until the pack arrives. How long will that take? Closest chapters are in Nevada and New Mexico. Maybe 18 hours for the first wave. He patted the seat behind him. Ever been on a bike? Cora shook her head, suddenly nervous. It's easy. Climb on, hold tight to my waist, lean when I lean. Don't fight the turns. His eyes crinkled. And whatever you do, don't let go. She climbed aboard, her short legs barely reaching the foot pegs. The leather seat was warm from the day's heat, worn smooth by years of use. When Harlan kick-started the engine, the rumble vibrated through her entire body. Ready? He called over his shoulder. Cora wrapped her arms around his waist and nodded against his back. They shot forward into the darkness. The desert raced past in shades of black and silver. Harlan kept the headlight off, navigating by starlight and memory, following old mining roads that barely qualified as trails. The bike bounced over rocks and ruts, and Cora clung tighter, her heart in her throat. Then she heard it, another engine, distant but closing fast. Harlan heard it too. He cursed and twisted the throttle, coaxing more speed from the bike. Cora risked a glance back and saw headlights cresting a ridge behind them. Not police lights. Just regular high beams, but they meant the same thing. Hendricks's men. Hold on. Harlan shouted. He veered sharply left, cutting across open desert toward a dry wash. The bike's suspension screamed as they dropped into the gully, rocks pinging off the undercarriage. Behind them, the pursuing vehicle hesitated at the edge, too wide to follow. But now there were voices on radios. Coordination. They'd have others cutting them off ahead. Harlan navigated the wash like a pro, using every twist and turn for cover. Twice more they spotted headlights, and twice Harlan evaded them, his knowledge of the terrain their only advantage. Cora's arms ached from holding on, her face pressed against his leather jacket, breathing in the smell of dust and sweat and something else, fear, maybe. Or determination. After what felt like hours but was probably only 40 minutes, Harlan eased off the throttle. They emerged from a narrow canyon onto an old access road, cracked asphalt barely visible under drifting sand. Half a mile ahead, illuminated by moonlight, stood the skeleton of a gas station, 2 pumps with their guts pulled out, a convenience store with windows dark as dead eyes, and beside it, a garage bay with its door hanging open. There, Harlan said, his voice hoarse. He killed the engine 50 yards out, letting momentum carry them the rest of the way. Silence rushed back in, broken only by their ragged breathing and the tick of cooling metal. Cora's legs trembled as she climbed off the bike. Harlan wheeled the motorcycle into the garage, then pulled the bay door closed behind them. Darkness swallowed everything. A moment later, a flashlight clicked on, revealing a space that had been recently used, sleeping bag in the corner, crates of supplies stacked against the wall, camping stove and propane. "Home sweet home," Harlan muttered. He limped to the crates, pulling out a first aid kit. "Help me with this." Cora watched as he peeled off his jacket, revealing arms mottled with bruises that were already turning purple-black. His ribs showed similar damage through his torn shirt. When he tried to lift his right arm, he gasped in pain. "Cracked rib, maybe two," he diagnosed. "Nothing I can do about that except tape it," he handed Cora the medical tape. "Wrap it around my chest. Tight, but not too tight." Her hands shook as she worked, this small girl trying to patch up this broken man in an abandoned gas station in the middle of nowhere. It felt surreal, like she'd stepped out of her life and into someone else's story. "You did good tonight," Harlan said as she finished. "Your father would be proud." "Did he? Did he ever want to meet me?" Harlan's expression turned sorrowful. "Every day. Talked about you constantly. What he'd teach you, the rides you'd take together. He had this whole future planned out." He touched her cheek gently. "He loved you, Cora. Never doubt that." Tears came then, hot and unstoppable. Harlan pulled her into a careful hug, and Cora cried for the father she'd never known, the mother who'd died keeping secrets, and the life she'd just left behind. Outside, somewhere in the desert darkness, engines prowled and radios crackled with search patterns. But inside the garage, wrapped in the arms of a man who'd been buried alive and lived to tell about it, Cora Maddox finally felt something she hadn't felt in years. Safe. Cora woke to the smell of instant coffee and the pale gray light of dawn filtering through cracks in the garage door. Her body ached in places she didn't know could ache, her arms, her back, even her fingers were sore from clutching Harlan during the ride. Harlan sat against the far wall, wrapped in medical tape, sipping from a tin cup. His face was drawn and pale, but his eyes were alert. "How long was I out?" Cora asked, sitting up from the sleeping bag he must have draped over her. 5 hours. "Sun's just coming up," he gestured to a bottle of water and protein bar beside her. "Breakfast of champions." Cora ate mechanically, her mind already spinning. "I need to go back. We talked about this. Not to stay. Just to let them know I'm okay." She saw his expression and pressed on. "Sister Margaret, she's mean and strict, but she'll be worried. And if I just disappear, they'll call the police. Real police, not Hendricks. There'll be Amber Alerts, search parties. That'll bring attention we don't want." Harlan considered this, rubbing his stubbled jaw. "Smart thinking. But it's risky." "Everything's risky now." Cora pulled on her sneakers. "I'll slip in through the fence, grab a few things to make it look less suspicious, maybe leave a note saying I ran away. Then I'm out. You've got 30 minutes. I see any vehicles heading toward St. Teresa's, I'm coming in loud." The ride back took 15 minutes along dirt roads that paralleled the highway. Harlan dropped her a quarter-mile from the orphanage, hidden behind an abandoned feed store. The morning air was cool, almost cold, and Cora shivered in her thin shirt. St. Teresa's looked different in the dawn light, smaller, shabbier than she remembered. Or maybe she was different now. Maybe everything had changed in the space of one night. She slipped through her usual gap in the fence and crept toward the dormitory's back door. The kitchen staff would be starting breakfast soon, but she had a few minutes. "Cora Maddox." She froze. The voice came from the front steps. Sheriff Hendricks sat there like he owned the place, his uniform crisp despite the early hour, his smile as white and cold as bleached bone. Beside him stood Deputy Collins, the young one with nervous hands. "Sheriff," Cora managed, her heart hammering. "What are you doing here?" "Looking for you, sweetheart," he stood, moving with the casual confidence of a predator. "Sister Margaret called last night. Said you never came back from." "Where was it?" "Your walk." "I fell asleep in the ravine. Lost track of time." Hendricks descended the steps slowly. "Funny thing. We were out in that ravine last night. Found something interesting. A hole in the sand. Fresh digging. Small footprints." His eyes narrowed. "You know anything about that?" "No, sir." "No?" He crouched down to her level, and Cora could smell his cologne, expensive, cloying. "Because here's what I think happened. I think you were out exploring, like you do. And I think you found something. Or someone." Behind him, the orphanage door opened. Sister Margaret stood there, her face tight with worry. Or was it fear? "Sheriff Hendricks," the nun said carefully. "Perhaps this conversation should happen inside. The child needs breakfast. The child needs to tell the truth." Hendricks didn't look away from Cora. "Did you see anyone in the desert yesterday? Anyone who might need help?" Every instinct screamed at Cora to run. But she was 9 years old and he was the sheriff and Sister Margaret was watching and there was nowhere to go. "No," she said. "I didn't see anyone." Hendricks studied her face for a long moment. Then he smiled, a smile that never reached his eyes. "Well, if you do see anything unusual, you come straight to me. Understand? There are dangerous people out there. Bad men who might try to fill a little girl's head with lies." He stood, adjusted his belt, and nodded to Sister Margaret. "Keep an eye on this one. She's got a wandering spirit." "I will, Sheriff." Sister Margaret's voice was barely above a whisper. Cora watched Hendricks and his deputy climb into their patrol car and drive away. Only when they disappeared around the corner did she release the breath she'd been holding. Inside, Sister Margaret hissed. "Now." The nun dragged her into the empty chapel, away from the other children who were starting to stir. "What have you done?" she demanded, her composure cracking. "The sheriff came here at 5 in the morning asking about you. Do you have any idea how terrifying that man is?" "I didn't do anything." "Don't lie to me." Sister Margaret's hands shook. "I've run this orphanage for 23 years. I know when a child is in trouble." She gripped Cora's shoulders. "Did you see something? Is that why he's looking for you?" Cora met the old woman's eyes and saw something she'd never seen before, genuine fear. Not for herself, for Cora. "Sister, I need to leave," Cora said quietly. "Not because I'm in trouble. Because if I stay, I'll bring trouble here. To you. To the other kids. You're 9 years old. You can't just." "Please," Cora pulled away. "Trust me. It's better this way." She ran before Sister Margaret could stop her, racing up the stairs to the dormitory. The other girls were still asleep. Cora grabbed her pillowcase and stuffed it with the only things that mattered, her collected stones, one change of clothes, a library book she'd been reading. She was halfway to the window when she heard it, vehicles. Multiple vehicles, moving fast. Cora ran to the window and looked out. Her blood turned to ice. 3 SUVs with tinted windows were pulling up to St. Teresa's front gate. Not police vehicles. Private. The kind Hendricks's fake deputies drove. They weren't leaving anything to chance. They were going to search the entire orphanage. And if they found her here, if they took her, Harlan would come for her. And they'd kill him. Cora made her decision in a heartbeat. She climbed out onto the fire escape, the rusted ladder Sister Margaret always said was too dangerous to use, and started climbing down. Second floor. First floor. Her hands slipped on the rusty rungs, but she kept going. She hit the ground just as she heard boots on the front steps. Shouting. Sister Margaret's voice raised in protest. Cora ran for the fence, squeezed through the gap, and didn't stop running until she reached the feed store where Harlan was waiting. He took one look at her face and fired up the bike. They came, she gasped. Hendricks sent his men. They're searching the orphanage right now. Then they know for sure you're involved. Harlan pulled her onto the bike. And they know I'm alive. As they roared away, Cora looked back once. St. Teresa's home for children stood silent in the morning light, the only home she'd known for 3 years. She wondered if she'd ever see it again. She wondered if Sister Margaret would be okay. But mostly, she wondered how long she and Harlan could run before Hendricks's reach finally caught them. The answer, she'd soon learn, wasn't run. It was stand and fight. The gas station felt smaller in daylight, more exposed. Harlan paced despite his injuries, moving to each window, checking sight lines, calculating escape routes. The radio crackled with static every few minutes, voices checking in from different states. Nevada's 12 hours out, he said, more to himself than to Cora. New Mexico maybe 10. Texas, he shook his head. Too far. Won't make it in time. In time for what? Cora sat on an overturned crate, hugging her pillowcase of belongings. Before Hendricks figures out where we are. Before he brings enough firepower to end this. Harlan stopped pacing, looking at her. I need you to understand something. What we did last night, calling the pack, that's a declaration of war. Hendricks can't let that stand. He'll come at us with everything he has. So what do? We survive long enough for reinforcements to arrive. He limped to the supply crates and pulled out a burner phone, its screen cracked but functional. But first, we need to make sure the right message gets out. What message? Harlan sat down beside her, turning the phone over in his hands. Your father was building a case against Hendricks. Evidence of the gun running, the bribes, everything. He had documentation, photos, financial records. But when they killed him, all of it disappeared. He looked at her pendant. Except he was smart. He didn't keep everything in one place. Cora's fingers went to the wolf's head. There's more hidden in this? Not in the pendant itself. But your father used serial codes, numbers that looked random but weren't. The code on your pendant's back. He took out the radio encryption chip, studying the tiny numbers etched around its edge. These numbers. They're not just encryption keys. They're coordinates. To what? That's what we need to find out. Harlan pulled out a folded map from another crate, spreading it across the floor. But first, we need insurance. We need people to know we're alive, what we're fighting for, and why Hendricks wants us dead. He powered up the burner phone and opened a recording app. This is going to sound crazy, but I need you to tell your story. On camera. Everything that happened, finding me, who I am, who your father was, what Hendricks did. Who's going to see it? Everyone. Harlan's expression was grim. I've got contacts, journalists, activists, people who've been trying to nail Hendricks for years. We send them this, they'll spread it everywhere. Local news, social media, maybe even national coverage. It's our insurance policy. Hendricks can kill us, but he can't silence us. Not if the truth is already out there. Cora's stomach churned. What if people don't believe me? I'm just a kid. You're John Maddox's daughter. And you've got his fire. Harlan positioned the phone. Just tell the truth. That's all anyone can do. The red recording light blinked on. Cora took a breath and began. She told everything, finding Harlan buried alive, learning about her father, the sheriff's threats, fleeing St. Teresa's. Her voice shook at first, then grew stronger. She held up her pendant to the camera, explained its significance, and looked directly into the lens. "My name is Cora Maddox. My father was John Maddox, and Sheriff Hendricks murdered him 6 years ago. Now he's trying to kill anyone who knows the truth. But I won't be quiet. And neither will the Iron Wolves." Harlan stopped recording. "Perfect. That's exactly what we needed." He uploaded the video to an encrypted server, then began sending links to multiple contacts. Cora watched the messages go out, to usernames like Desert Journalist, Truth Hunter, Cleansweep AZ. "Now we wait," Harlan said. "Should hit the blogs within an hour, social media after that. By tonight, Hendricks will be answering some very uncomfortable questions. Will that stop him? No. But it'll slow him down. Make him more careful." Harlan returned to the map, using the numbers from the pendant chip. "Now let's see what your father wanted us to find." He traced latitude and longitude coordinates, his finger moving across the desert terrain until it stopped at a location about 30 miles northeast. There. Old mining office near Copper Ridge. Abandoned since the 80s, his eyes lit up. "Your father took me there once, years ago. Said if anything ever happened to him, his legacy was buried where the wolves once howled." "The evidence," Cora breathed. "Maybe. Or maybe another clue. Your father was paranoid, rightfully so. He wouldn't have kept everything in one spot." Harlan began gathering supplies, stuffing a backpack with water, food, the first aid kit. "We need to move before Hendricks's net tightens. Get there, get whatever's waiting, then link up with the pack." "How far out are they now?" Harlan checked the radio. More confirmations had come in while they talked. "First wave hits in 8 hours. But that's 8 hours we might not have." A sound outside froze them both, the distant whine of engines. Multiple engines, moving in a search pattern. Harlan moved to the window, peering through a crack in the boards. 3 vehicles. Spread out, working a grid. They're checking every abandoned building in a 10-mile radius. How long before they reach us? 20 minutes. Maybe less. He grabbed his jacket, tossed Cora a helmet that was way too big for her head. Time to go. They were wheeling the bike toward the back exit when Harlan's burner phone buzzed. A text from one of his contacts: "Your video is blowing up. 50K views in 30 minutes. News stations calling for interviews. You've started something." Harlan showed it to Cora, and despite everything, the danger, the fear, the uncertainty, she smiled. "Dad would be proud," she said. "Yeah." Harlan tucked the phone away. "He would." They slipped out the back as the first SUV pulled up to the gas station's front. The bike's engine turned over quietly. Harlan had modified the exhaust years ago for stealth. They rolled 50 yards before he kicked it into gear and they shot forward across the desert floor. Behind them, men with guns emerged from the vehicles. Radios crackled with urgent chatter. But Cora and Harlan were already gone, racing toward Copper Ridge and whatever secrets her father had left behind. The hunt was on. But now, so was the counter-offensive. And somewhere across America, thousands of riders were rolling toward Arizona, coming to answer a call that had been silent for 6 years. Coming home to keep a promise. The truck stop diner squatted beside Highway 60 like a relic from another era, chrome dulled by decades of sun, neon sign flickering with missing letters that spelled DT and DINK. Harlan pulled the bike behind a cluster of 18-wheelers, using them for cover. "We need gas, food, and information," he said, helping Cora off. "Stay close. Don't talk to anyone unless I do first." Inside, the diner smelled of burnt coffee and grease. A handful of truckers occupied the counter, barely glancing up from their plates. The waitress, 60-ish, hair dyed an impossible shade of red, gave them a once-over but didn't comment on the bruised man and dirty child who just walked in. Harlan chose a corner booth with a view of the parking lot and entrance. They ordered eggs and toast for Cora, just coffee for Harlan, who still looked too nauseous to eat. "We're exposed here," Cora whispered. "I know. But we need to refuel, and this place." Harlan's eyes scanned the room. "Your father used to bring me here. Said it was neutral ground. Bikers, truckers, anyone running from something, nobody asks questions at Betty's diner." "Is Betty the waitress?" "Betty's been dead 15 years. But the name stuck." He sipped his coffee, grimaced. "God, still terrible." They were halfway through their meal when the bell above the door chimed. Cora looked up and saw an old man enter, easily 70, wearing a faded leather vest over a denim shirt, his white beard braided in the style of outlaw bikers. But it was the patches on his vest that made Harlan go rigid. Iron Wolves. Nevada chapter. And a nickname embroidered beneath the wolf, Redline. The old biker's eyes swept the diner and landed on Harlan. Something passed between them, recognition, surprise, then a careful neutrality. Redline ordered coffee at the counter, paid, then walked slowly toward their booth. He slid into the seat beside Harlan without asking permission. "Heard you were dead," Redline said quietly, his voice like gravel in a cement mixer. "Got better." Harlan kept his tone neutral, but Cora saw his hand drift toward his belt, where she knew he'd tucked a knife. "That so?" Redline's gaze shifted to Cora, and his weathered face softened. "And who's this?" "She's with me." "I can see that. Question is, why?" Redline leaned back, studying them both. Then his eyes caught on Cora's pendant, visible above her collar. He went still as stone. "Sweet Jesus. Is that what I think it is?" "Depends on what you think it is," Harlan said carefully. Redline reached across the table. Harlan tensed, but the old biker simply lifted the pendant gently, turning it over to see the engraved letters. His hand shook. "IWM. Iron Wolves Maddox." His voice cracked. "This is John's mark. The founder's seal." He looked at Cora with wonder. "You're his daughter. You're the cub." Tears gathered in the old man's eyes. He released the pendant and wiped his face roughly. "John told us he had a little girl. Showed me a picture once. You couldn't have been more than 3. After he died, we looked everywhere. The mother disappeared, the kid vanished like smoke. We thought," he swallowed hard. "We thought maybe Hendrix got to you too." "He's trying," Cora said quietly. Redline's expression hardened. "Got your signal last night." "Already on my way." When I saw Harlan's bike outside, he pulled a burner phone from his vest, sliding it across the table. "Clean. Untraceable. You're going to need it." "You're risking a lot, talking to us," Harlan said. "John Maddox saved my life in '08. Took a bullet meant for me during a bar fight in Reno. Spent 2 weeks in the hospital." Redline's jaw set. "I owed him everything. Still do. So if his daughter needs help, there's no risk too big." "We're headed to Copper Ridge," Harlan said after a moment's consideration. "Following coordinates John left behind." "The old mining office." "Yeah, I know it." Redline nodded. "John took me there once too. Said it was hallowed ground, where he first got the idea for the club. Place where wolves used to den before the miners drove them out." He paused. "But Copper Ridge is 40 miles into the desert. Hendrix will have the main roads covered by now. We'll go off-road." "Not on that bike you won't. Not with the kid. The terrain's too rough." Redline thought for a moment. "I've got a truck, 4-wheel drive, reinforced suspension. Take it. I'll ride your bike out as a decoy, lead any tails away." "That's suicide," Harlan protested. "That's strategy." Redline grinned, showing missing teeth. "I'm 73 years old, son. Been riding since before you were born." If I can't shake a few crooked deputies, I deserve to get caught. He tossed a set of keys on the table. Red Ford, third row back. Tanks full. Harlan picked up the keys slowly. Why are you doing this? Because John Maddox believed in something bigger than himself. He believed we could be more than outlaws and misfits. He believed we could stand for something good. Redline looked at Cora. And because that little girl sitting there is his legacy. She's what he died for. And I'll be damned if I let Hendricks take that away. Cora's throat tightened. Did you know my mom too? Sarah? Yeah, I met her a few times. Beautiful woman. Scared, but strong. John loved her fierce. Redline's expression saddened. She died about 4 years back, didn't she? Cora nodded, unable to speak. I'm sorry, kid. She did right by you, kept you hidden, kept you safe. Now it's our turn. He stood, adjusting his vest. Give me 10 minutes, then head out. I'll take the highway north, make sure anyone watching sees me go. The pack's converging, Harlan said. 8 hours, maybe less. I'll spread the word. We'll meet you at Copper Ridge. Redline paused, looking at them both. Your father used to say something, Cora. A wolf alone can survive. But a pack can change the world. He believed that. We all did. He walked to the counter, had a quiet word with the waitress, then headed outside. Through the window, Cora watched him mount Harlan's motorcycle. He fired it up, the engine roaring loud enough to turn heads, then peeled out onto the highway in a cloud of dust and exhaust. He just painted a target on his back, Cora said. Yeah, Harlan stood, dropping bills on the table. That's what pack means. We protect each other. Whatever the cost. They slipped out the back, found the red Ford truck exactly where Redline said it would be. The cab smelled of cigarettes and leather oil. Harlan started the engine, and they rolled out slowly, avoiding the main highway, taking service roads that wound through the scrubland. In the rearview mirror, Cora could see the diner shrinking behind them. She wondered if she'd ever see Redline again. She wondered how many others like him were out there, people who'd loved her father, who'd make sacrifices for a girl they just met simply because she wore his mark. We're not alone anymore, she said softly. No, Harlan agreed, gripping the wheel. We're not. And somewhere behind them, sirens began to wail, chasing a lone biker on a black motorcycle who was leading them away from the truth they couldn't afford to find. The service road to Copper Ridge was barely a road at all, just 2 parallel tire tracks winding through mesquite and scrub brush. Harlan drove with one eye on the terrain and one on the mirrors, constantly scanning for pursuit. How much farther? Cora asked, gripping the dashboard as the truck bounced over a washed-out gully. 5 miles. Maybe less. Harlan's jaw was tight. But this last stretch is exposed. Nothing but open desert and that ridge. If they're waiting for us. They won't be. Redline led them away. I hope you're right. But Cora could hear the doubt in his voice. And as they crested a small rise, that doubt became reality. 4 black SUVs sat in a line across the road ahead, blocking their path. Men stood beside the vehicles, 6 of them, maybe more. Not in uniform. Not carrying identification. Just guns and grim faces. Damn it. Harlan slammed the brakes, throwing the truck into reverse. Hold on. He'd barely gone 20 feet when 2 more SUVs appeared from behind an outcropping of rocks, boxing them in from behind. 7 vehicles total. At least a dozen men. They were trapped. Harlan killed the engine, his mind visibly racing through options. Fight. Run. Surrender. None of them good. Stay in the truck, he ordered, reaching under the seat and pulling out a pistol Cora hadn't known was there. No matter what happens, you stay. Harlan Cross. A voice boomed across the desert, amplified by a bullhorn. "Step out of the vehicle. Hands where we can see them." Harlan's finger tensed on the trigger. Cora saw the calculation in his eyes, weighing their lives against impossible odds. "They'll kill us both if you fight," she whispered. "They might kill us anyway. But if there's a chance." A gunshot cracked through the air. The truck's side mirror exploded in a spray of glass and metal. "Next one goes through the windshield," the voice warned. "Out of the truck. Now." Harlan looked at Cora, and in his eyes she saw something that broke her heart: resignation. Defeat. The look of a man who'd fought his whole life and finally run out of moves. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm so sorry, kid." "Don't be." Cora's hand found his. "You gave me my father back. That's worth everything." Harlan's eyes glistened. He set the gun on the seat, squeezed her hand once, then opened the door. "The girl stays in the truck," he called out. "This is between me and Hendrix. She's 9 years old, she's got nothing to do with." "The girl is evidence," the voice cut him off. "She's coming too." Cora's door was yanked open. Rough hands grabbed her arm, dragging her from the cab. She tried to fight, kicking and scratching, but the man was too strong. He hauled her toward the SUVs where Harlan was already being forced to his knees, a gun pressed to the back of his head. Sheriff Hendrix emerged from the lead vehicle, looking crisp and composed despite the desert heat. He approached them slowly, savoring his victory. "You've caused me considerable trouble," he said to Harlan. "That video, clever. Already got 500,000 views. News networks calling for statements. Very inconvenient." "Then it's too late," Harlan said through gritted teeth. "The truth is out. Everyone knows what you are. They know a story. A narrative." Hendrix smiled coldly. "Stories can be rewritten. Tragic tale: dangerous biker kidnaps orphan girl, leads police on a chase, dies resisting arrest. Girl traumatized, spouting fantasies about her kidnapper's wild claims. Very sad. But at least she's safe now." "Nobody will believe that," Cora spat. "Won't they?" Hendrix crouched in front of her. "You're a child. A disturbed child from a troubled background. Your mother was unstable, your father, assuming John Maddox was your father, was a criminal. What you believe and what actually happened are two different things. And I control the narrative in this county." He stood, brushing dust from his knees. "Take them to the ridge. Make it look like an accident. Chase gone wrong, vehicle went over the edge. Terrible tragedy. You can't." Cora screamed, struggling against the hands holding her. "The iron wolves are coming. Hundreds of them. They'll what? Ride into town and start trouble? I have the National Guard on speed dial, little girl. I have state senators who owe me favors. Your biker friends show up here, it'll be a massacre." Hendrix turned away. "Do it. And be thorough." The men dragged Cora and Harlan toward one of the SUVs. Cora fought every step, but it was useless. She was small, and they were strong, and "Jump!" Harlan suddenly roared. "When I move, you jump off the bike." It took Cora a split second to understand. He wasn't talking to her now. He was talking to her from the future, giving her instructions for something that hadn't happened yet. Or had it already happened? Time seemed to slow. Harlan twisted violently, throwing his elbow into the face of the man holding him. Blood spurted from the man's nose. Harlan grabbed his gun, fired twice, not at the men, but at the gas tank of the nearest SUV. The explosion was deafening. Fire bloomed across the desert floor. Men scattered, shouting, confused. In the chaos, Harlan grabbed Cora's hand and ran. They sprinted toward the ridge, bullets kicking up sand around their feet. The truck, Redline's truck, was still idling where they'd left it. Harlan threw Cora toward it. "Get in." But more shots rang out. Harlan stumbled, clutching his side. Blood seeped between his fingers. "No!" Cora screamed. "Drive." Harlan shoved her toward the truck. "You can reach the pedals, I've seen you watching. Drive to the ridge." "I can't leave you. I'll catch up. Just go." More bullets. The windshield spider-webbed. Cora made a decision that would haunt her for years. She climbed into the driver's seat, stretched her leg to reach the gas pedal, and threw the truck into drive. In the rearview mirror, she saw Harlan firing back at their pursuers, giving her cover. Saw him go down on one knee. Saw the SUVs start to pursue. And then she saw him wave her forward, a final gesture that said, "Live. For both of us." The truck roared forward toward Copper Ridge. Behind her, the firefight continued. Ahead, the ridge loomed, a steep drop-off where the desert floor fell away into a canyon. She was 9 years old, driving a truck she could barely control, with killers chasing her and the only person who cared about her bleeding out in the dust. But she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Because wolves don't quit. And she was her father's daughter. The truck hit a rut and went airborne for a heart-stopping second. When it crashed back down, Cora saw something ahead, a bridge. An old rail bridge spanning the canyon, its tracks long since torn up for scrap. She aimed for it, praying it would hold, praying the SUVs were too heavy to follow. The truck's tires hit the bridge's concrete abutment and she lost control. The world spun, sky, ground, canyon, sky. Metal screamed. Glass shattered. Then everything went black. When Cora opened her eyes, she was under the bridge, wedged in the struts, looking up at the underside of the concrete deck. The truck had crashed through the guardrail and gotten caught in the support structure. Above her, she heard engines. Voices. "I don't see a body. Check the canyon." She couldn't have survived that fall. "What about Cross?" "Dead." Hendricks confirmed it. The voices faded. The engines pulled away. Cora hung there in the shadows, broken and bleeding, clutching her pendant with one hand and holding on to consciousness with everything she had. Harlan was dead. She was alone. But somewhere, the pack was still coming. And she had to survive long enough to meet them. Pain woke Cora, sharp, insistent pain in her left arm and ribs. She hung suspended in the twisted metal of Redline's truck, wedged between the bridge's support beams and the canyon wall. The drop below was at least 50 feet to a dry creek lined with rocks that would have killed her instantly. The bridge had saved her life. She carefully extracted herself from the wreckage, biting back screams as her injured arm shifted. Dislocated shoulder, maybe. Or broken. She couldn't tell. Blood crusted her forehead from a cut above her eye, and her ribs felt like someone had kicked them repeatedly. But she was alive. Harlan wasn't. The thought threatened to drown her, but she pushed it down. Grief was a luxury she couldn't afford. Not yet. Not while Hendricks's men might still be searching. Using the bridge supports, Cora climbed hand over hand back up to the road level. The sun had moved, she'd been unconscious for at least an hour, maybe 2. The desert was silent except for the wind whistling through the canyon. She stumbled along the road toward where the firefight had happened. Empty shell casings littered the ground. Tire tracks showed where the SUVs had departed. And there, in the center of it all, a dark stain in the sand. Blood. Harlan's blood. But no body. Cora's heart lurched. Did that mean? No. Hendricks would have taken the body. Evidence to dispose of. A story to control. She forced herself to keep moving, following the coordinates burned into her memory. Copper Ridge was close, she could see the abandoned mining structures jutting from the landscape ahead. 2 miles, maybe less. She walked. Every step was agony. The sun beat down mercilessly. She'd lost her water in the crash. Her vision blurred at the edges, and twice she fell, scraping her knees raw on the gravel. But she kept walking. Because her father had died for the truth. And Harlan had died protecting her. And she'd be damned if she let their sacrifices mean nothing. The mining office appeared like a mirage, a squat concrete building with broken windows and a roof half caved in by time. Rusted equipment lay scattered around it like bones of some prehistoric creature. And painted on the wall, faded but still visible, a wolf's head in red spray paint. Her father's mark. Cora stumbled inside, collapsing against the wall. The interior was dim and cool, a relief from the brutal sun. She let herself rest for just a moment, closing her eyes. The sound of engines snapped her back to consciousness. Multiple engines. Dozens of them. Panic flooded through her. They'd found her. Hendricks had. But these engines sounded different. Higher pitched. Synchronized. Moving in formation. Motorcycles. Cora dragged herself to the broken window and looked out. What she saw made her breath catch. Bikes. Everywhere. They came over the rise like a thunder cloud given form, 20, 30, 40 motorcycles, with more appearing every second. They wore leather vests bearing the Iron Wolves patch. They rode in tight formation, disciplined, purposeful. The pack had arrived. The lead bike stopped 50 feet from the building. The rider dismounted, a woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair braided down her back, her vest covered in patches and pins. She surveyed the area with sharp, tactical eyes, then gestured. The other riders spread out, securing the perimeter. "Clear the building," she called. "Medic up front. Stay sharp, this could be a trap." 2 bikers entered the mining office, guns drawn. They swept the room, found Cora huddled in the corner, and immediately lowered their weapons. "Got her," one shouted. "The kid's here. She's hurt." The woman rushed in, dropping to her knees beside Cora. "Easy, sweetheart. Easy. We've got you now." She examined Cora's injuries with practiced efficiency. Shoulders dislocated. Possible concussion. "Where's Harlan?" "Dead." The word tasted like ash in Cora's mouth. "They killed him. Hendricks's men. There was an ambush, and her voice cracked. "He saved me. Told me to run." The woman's face hardened. "You're sure he's dead?" "I saw him go down." Saw the blood. Tears streamed down Cora's face. "It's my fault. If I hadn't." "No," the woman gripped Cora's good shoulder firmly. "You listen to me. Harlan Cross was a warrior. He died doing what he was born to do, protecting Pac. You honor that by surviving. By finishing what he started. Understand?" Cora nodded, unable to speak. "I'm Razor," the woman said. "California chapter president. I knew your father. Rode with him for 10 years." She helped Cora to her feet. "The medic's going to set that shoulder. It's going to hurt like hell." "I don't care. That's John Maddox's daughter." "All right," Razor almost smiled. "Come on." Outside, Cora saw the full scope of what had assembled. At least 60 bikes now, with more arriving every few minutes. The riders ranged from their 20s to their 70s, men and women, all wearing the Iron Wolves patch, all watching her with expressions that mixed grief and determination. The medic, a burly man with tattooed arms, took Cora's shoulder gently. "On 3, okay? 1, 2. He reset it on 2. Cora's scream echoed across the desert, scattering ravens from nearby rocks. But the relief was immediate. He fashioned a sling from a bandana and handed her water. "Drink slowly. You're dehydrated." Razor led Cora to the center of the gathering. Someone had set up a folding table and spread out a map. More bikers crowded around, listening. "This is Cora Maddox," Razor announced. "John's daughter. The cub we've been searching for. She's been through hell, so treat her with respect. But she's also our mission objective now. Understood?" A chorus of affirmatives. Harlan Cross died protecting her, Razor continued, her voice thick with emotion. He sent out the Alpha signal knowing it might be his last act. He called us home. And we came. She looked around at the assembled riders. "Now we finish this. We take down Hendricks. We expose everything. And we make sure John and Harlan didn't die for nothing." An older biker stepped forward. He had a long gray beard and kind eyes. "The kid knows where John's evidence is?" All eyes turned to Cora. She straightened despite the pain, despite the exhaustion, despite everything. "The coordinates led here. My father must have hidden something in this building. Then we search," Razor said. "Every inch. We find what John left behind, and we use it to burn Hendrix's empire to the ground." The bikers dispersed, moving through the abandoned mining office with methodical precision. Cora watched them work, these strangers who dropped everything and ridden hundreds of miles for a little girl they'd never met, all because of a promise made years ago. Family, she realized. This was what family looked like. One of the bikers called out from the back room. "Found something. Hidden panel in the floor." Everyone rushed over. The biker pried up a section of concrete, revealing a weatherproof case wedged into a hollowed-out space beneath. He pulled it out and handed it to Razor. She opened it carefully. Inside, hard drives, USB sticks, file folders, and a handwritten journal in her father's handwriting. Razor's hands shook as she lifted the journal. "This is it. This is John's insurance policy." She looked at Cora. "Your father was a genius. He documented everything, transactions, routes, names, dates. This is enough to bring down Hendricks and everyone connected to him." "Then what are we waiting for?" Cora asked. Razor's smile was sharp as a blade. "Nothing. Absolutely nothing." She pulled out her phone and started making calls, to lawyers, to journalists, to federal agents she'd cultivated over years of activism. The pack was awake. And they were done running. The Iron Wolves converted the mining office into a makeshift operations center. Laptops appeared, powered by portable generators. Tech-savvy members began processing the hard drives, their faces illuminated by glowing screens in the darkening room. "We need to move carefully," Razor said, spreading documents across the table. "This evidence is explosive, but we need to present it right. One mistake and Hendrix's lawyers will tear it apart." "What's on the drives?" Cora asked, leaning against the table with her good arm. A younger biker named Tech, he couldn't have been more than 25, pulled up files on his laptop. Financial records going back 8 years. Shell companies, offshore accounts, wire transfers. "Your father was meticulous." He scrolled through screens of data. He traced the money flow from weapons sales through a network of fake businesses. "It's brilliant work. But we need something more immediate," said a grizzled biker called Ironside. "Something that proves current criminal activity. Financial records are good for court, but we need something that'll force the feds to act now." Harlan said he had footage, Cora interjected. "Of the convoy. The weapons shipment. He said that's why they buried him, because he recorded them." Razor turned to her sharply. "Where would he have kept that?" "His helmet camera. He said they took everything when they captured him, phone, camera, all of it. Then it's gone." "Destroyed?" Ironside shook his head. "Not necessarily." Tech was already typing. Harlan was old school, but he wasn't stupid. California chapter set everyone up with cloud backup about 2 years ago. Any footage from helmet cams gets automatically uploaded to encrypted servers. His fingers flew across the keyboard. If he was wearing the cam when they grabbed him, if it was recording. There's a chance. The room fell silent, everyone watching the screen. "Come on," Tech muttered. "Come on, you beautiful bastard." A progress bar appeared. Files downloading. Everyone held their breath. The video player opened, showing Harlan's point of view from 2 nights ago. Desert landscape, the rumble of his bike's engine. Then he slowed, cutting his lights. In the distance, a convoy of trucks, 5 heavy-duty vehicles moving without headlights across federal land. Harlan's whispered narration, 2200 hours. 15 miles west of Copper Ridge. Unmarked convoy on restricted territory. Moving to intercept. The footage showed him following at a distance, using night vision. The truck stopped at a rendezvous point. Men emerged, some in sheriff's department uniforms, others in unmarked tactical gear. And there, clear as day, Sheriff Hendricks himself, directing the operation. The truck beds opened, revealing crates of weapons, automatic rifles, ammunition, what looked like explosives. Hendricks inspected them personally, checking manifests against the inventory. Serial numbers filed off, Harlan's voice narrated. Military hardware. Destination unknown. Confirming participants. The camera zoomed in on faces. Hendricks. His chief deputy. 2 county commissioners Cora recognized from news coverage. A federal ATF agent whose badge was visible. Then something went wrong. Someone spotted Harlan. Shouts. Muzzle flashes. "They made me," Harlan's voice, tight with stress. "Aborting. Need to." The footage cut to chaos, the bike accelerating, bullets sparking off rocks, Harlan breathing hard. Then a jarring impact, the bike going down. Darkness. Scuffling. Hendricks's voice, cold and clear, "Bury him in the ravine. Make sure he can't be found." The video ended. The mining office was dead silent. "Holy hell," Razor breathed. "This is everything. This is Hendricks committing multiple federal felonies on camera. Conspiracy, weapons trafficking, attempted murder. And it's time-stamped with GPS coordinates," Tech added. "Completely verifiable. This footage is legally admissible. We need to get this to the FBI," Ironside said. "Right now. Before Hendricks knows we have it." "He already knows we're here," Razor countered. "We're not exactly subtle, 60 bikes converging on one location. He'll have eyes on us." "Then we go public first," a new voice spoke from the doorway, an older woman in a pristine leather jacket, her silver hair cut short. She stepped into the light, and Cora saw the patch on her vest, Iron Wolves, National President. Everyone straightened. Even Razor looked surprised. "Steele," Razor said. "Didn't expect you until tomorrow. Changed my mind. When I heard Harlan was dead and the cub was alive, I knew this was bigger than we thought." Steele moved to the table, her presence commanding. "How many riders we got now?" 87 and counting, Razor reported. "More rolling in every hour from across the country." "Good." "Not enough, but good." Steele studied the evidence spread before her. "Here's what we do. We don't wait for the FBI. We don't play by Hendricks's rules. We take this fight public, so public he can't bury it." "What are you proposing?" Ironside asked. "We ride. All of us. We take Interstate 17, the main artery into Phoenix. We block the highway in a moving demonstration. Rolling roadblock. Make it impossible for traffic to move." Steele's eyes gleamed. "We live stream everything, the ride, the evidence, Cora's testimony. We make it the biggest story in the country. Media will eat it up. And while the whole nation is watching, we deliver the evidence directly to the FBI's Phoenix field office. That's illegal, someone pointed out. So is murder, Steele shot back. So is weapons trafficking. So is burying a man alive. We've played nice for 6 years, and where did it get us? John dead. Harlan dead. This child orphaned and hunted. She looked around the room. I'm done being patient. Who's with me? Every hand went up. Steele turned to Cora. This is your father's fight. His evidence. His legacy. But you're the one who found Harlan. You're the one who survived. So you decide, do we go loud, or do we play it safe? Cora thought of Harlan bleeding out in the desert. Of her father, murdered for trying to expose the truth. Of Redline, leading pursuers away. Of every iron wolf who dropped their life to ride across the country for her. She thought of 9 years in orphanages, invisible and voiceless. Not anymore. We go loud, Cora said, her voice steady and sure. We make so much noise they can't ignore us. We ride. Steele smiled, a fierce, proud smile. That's John Maddox's daughter. She pulled out her phone. All chapters, this is Steele. Rally point is Copper Ridge. Route is I-17 southbound to Phoenix. We ride at dawn. And we ride for Harlan, for John, and for the cub. Spread the word, every wolf within 500 miles. This is the big 1-inch. Outside, the sound of engines grew louder as more bikes arrived through the desert night. The pack was gathering. And tomorrow, they would make the whole country listen. Dawn broke over Copper Ridge like a promise. Cora stood on the hood of an overturned truck, watching the desert come alive with motorcycles. They stretched as far as she could see, hundreds of bikes, maybe thousands, all converging on the abandoned mining site. The count had reached 300 by midnight. By 4 a.m., it was over 1,000. Now, as the sun painted the sky in shades of crimson and gold, the number kept climbing. 7,200, Tech reported, monitoring incoming signals. Chapters from 42 states. Some riders drove through the night just to be here. 7,200 riders. For her. For her father. For Harlan. Cora's chest tightened with emotion she couldn't name. Steele climbed up beside her, surveying the sea of leather and chrome. Your father would have loved this. He always said the pack was strongest when it ran together. She handed Cora a small helmet, custom-fitted for a child. You'll ride with me. Front of the formation. This is your ride, Cora Maddox. I'm scared, Cora admitted quietly. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. But look at them, Steele gestured to the assembled riders. Every person here chose to be here. Chose to risk arrest, injury, maybe worse. Because your father taught us that some things are worth fighting for. And one of those things is you. Razor approached with a tablet. Media's already picking up chatter. Social media's exploding, people are posting photos of Iron Wolves formations heading toward I-17. News helicopters are scrambling. And Hendricks? Quiet. Too quiet. Razor's expression was grim. He's got to know something's happening. Question is what he'll do about it. He'll try to stop us, Ironside said, joining them. State police, maybe National Guard. He's got the connections. Let him try. Steele's voice was iron. We're not breaking laws, we're exercising our right to peaceful assembly. Mobile protest. It's been done before. Not with 7,000 bikers, Razor pointed out. First time for everything. Steele checked her watch. Sun's up. Let's move. The organization was military in precision. Chapters formed up by state, each with designated leaders. Tech and his team set up mobile hotspots, ensuring live stream coverage. Scouts rode ahead to monitor police activity. Medics positioned themselves throughout the formation. Cora climbed onto Steele's bike, settling in behind the national president. The helmet fit perfectly, and someone had painted a small wolf on its side, her father's mark. "Ready?" Steele asked over her shoulder. Cora nodded, gripping tight. Steele's engine roared to life. Then another. Then 100 more. The sound built like thunder, echoing off the canyon walls, a primal, overwhelming symphony of defiance. They rolled out in formation, a river of metal and leather flowing across the desert toward Interstate 17. By the time they reached the highway on-ramp, the formation stretched for 3 miles. They merged onto I-17 at precisely 7:03 a.m., taking over all 4 lanes. And then they slowed. Not stopped, that would be illegal. But they reduced speed to exactly 25 miles per hour, maintaining perfect spacing, creating a rolling blockade that brought the interstate to a crawl. Behind them, traffic piled up immediately. Cars, trucks, semis, all trapped behind the slowly advancing wall of motorcycles. Some drivers honked. Others pulled out phones, recording. Within minutes, the footage hit social media. "We're trending," Tech reported through the comm system. #1 on Twitter. #IronWolvesRide. News networks are going live. A news helicopter appeared overhead, its camera capturing the spectacle, 7,000 motorcycles moving in synchronized formation, blocking one of Arizona's major highways. Cora watched it all from her perch behind Steele, her heart pounding. This was real. This was happening. They were making the whole state, the whole country, pay attention. Steele's voice came through the comm, "All chapters, hold formation. Remember, we're peaceful. Disciplined. Anyone breaks ranks, you answer to me." Mile after mile, they rolled southward. The backup behind them stretched for 30 miles now. Traffic was completely paralyzed. Cora saw drivers standing beside their cars, some filming, some frustrated, but many, holding up signs or cheering. One sign read, "Expose the truth." Another, "Justice for John Maddox." They knew. Somehow, they already knew. "The video's out," Tech confirmed. "Released it 10 minutes ago. Harlan's footage. Going viral. 6 million views and climbing." Cora felt tears sting her eyes. Harlan's last mission, completed posthumously. His final act of defiance reaching millions. Then the police came. State troopers appeared ahead, setting up a roadblock. Lights flashing, officers standing ready. "Hold formation," Steele commanded. "Reduce to 15 miles per hour. Do not stop. Do not engage." The Iron Wolves slowed but kept moving. The troopers scrambled, realizing their roadblock was useless. The bike simply flowed around it, maintaining their steady, inexorable advance. A police captain tried to wave them down. Steele stopped briefly, engine idling. "Ma'am, you need to disperse. This is illegal obstruction. We're traveling at legal speeds on a public highway, Captain." "That's not illegal. You're blocking traffic." "We are traffic," Steele revved her engine. "You want us to disperse? Arrest us. All 7,000 of us. See how that plays on national television." The captain's face reddened, but he stepped back. He knew he was beaten. There was no logistical way to arrest this many people, especially not with cameras everywhere. The Iron Wolves rolled on. By noon, they'd covered 40 miles. The traffic backup stretched for 60 miles. Every news network had helicopters covering the story. The hashtag had 12 million mentions. Harlan's video had 20 million views. And in his office in Copper Springs, Sheriff Hendricks watched it all unfold on television, his carefully constructed empire crumbling with every mile the motorcycles advanced. He made a phone call. "I don't care what it takes," he snarled. "Stop them. Use tear gas, spike strips, whatever you need. They don't reach Phoenix. They don't reach the FBI office. Understood?" 10 miles ahead of the Iron Wolves, riot police began assembling. Armored vehicles. Tactical teams. Orders to disperse the rioters by any means necessary. Steele saw them preparing and smiled grimly. "All chapters," she broadcast. "Incoming confrontation ahead. Remember, peaceful resistance. They want us to fight back. Don't give them the satisfaction. We ride through, no matter what." Cora tightened her grip on Steele's waist. The Iron Wolves thundered forward, 7,000 strong, toward a confrontation that would define them all. Toward justice. Toward truth. Toward home. The riot police line stretched across all 4 lanes, shields locked, tear gas launchers ready, armored vehicles positioned like medieval siege weapons. Behind them, more state troopers, federal marshals, even sheriff's deputies from neighboring counties. But the Iron Wolves didn't stop. They slowed to 10 miles per hour, engines rumbling in unison, a sound like the earth itself groaning. News helicopters circled overhead, broadcasting everything live. Millions watched. 50 yards from the police line, Steele raised her fist. The entire formation stopped as one. Silence fell across the desert highway, 7,000 engines cutting out simultaneously. The sudden quiet was more intimidating than the noise had been. Steele dismounted, helping Cora down. Then she did something unexpected. She removed her helmet and walked forward, hands visible and empty. "I am Jessica Steele, National President of the Iron Wolves Motorcycle Club," she called out, her voice carrying in the stillness. "We are here peacefully. We are here legally. And we are here to deliver evidence of federal crimes to the FBI Phoenix field office. Disperse immediately," a voice boomed through a bullhorn. "This is an unlawful assembly. We are traffic," Steele repeated calmly. "Traveling at legal speeds. You have no grounds to arrest us." Behind her, every single Iron Wolf dismounted their bikes and stood beside them. 7,000 people, standing silent and defiant. A murmur ran through the police line. This wasn't a riot. This wasn't violence. This was something they hadn't trained for, mass civil disobedience performed with military precision. Then Cora stepped forward. She walked past Steele, this small girl with her arm in a sling and bruises on her face, and she kept walking until she stood alone between the Iron Wolves and the police line. "My name is Cora Maddox," she said, her young voice somehow carrying across the highway. "I'm 9 years old. 5 days ago, I found a man buried alive in the desert. His name was Harlan Cross, and Sheriff Hendricks murdered him. Just like he murdered my father 6 years ago." A camera drone descended, capturing her face. The image broadcast to every screen in America. "My father was John Maddox. He tried to expose Sheriff Hendricks's weapons trafficking operation. He died for it. Harlan died for it. And these people," she gestured to the Iron Wolves behind her, "they came because they promised my father they'd protect me. That's all they're doing. Keeping a promise." She pulled a USB drive from her pocket, a copy of Harlan's footage that Tech had given her. "This is proof. Video evidence of Sheriff Hendricks committing federal crimes. We're trying to deliver it to the FBI. We're not criminals. We're witnesses. And you're helping a murderer by stopping us." The police captain lowered his bullhorn, his face conflicted. Behind him, officers shifted uncomfortably. They'd signed up to protect and serve, not to help cover up corruption. Then a black SUV pushed through the police line. "FBI. 3 agents emerged, led by a woman in a dark suit whose ID badge read SAC Rivera, Phoenix Field Office. She walked directly to Cora, knelt down to eye level. Cora Maddox, her voice was gentle but professional. "I'm Special Agent in Charge Rivera. We've been reviewing the video footage released this morning. It's compelling." She glanced at the USB drive in Cora's hand. "Is that additional evidence?" "Yes, ma'am. My father's files. 8 years of documentation. Everything you need to arrest Sheriff Hendricks and his conspirators." Agent Rivera took the drive carefully, like it was made of glass. She stood, addressing Steele. "We'd like to take statements from everyone involved. Cora, you, anyone who interacted with Harlan Cross in the last week. We'll cooperate fully," Steele said. "But we want assurances. The girl's safety. No harassment of club members. And we want Hendricks arrested today." "Sheriff Hendricks is already in federal custody," Rivera said. "We picked him up an hour ago, along with 3 county commissioners, 5 deputies, and a federal ATF agent. Your video made it impossible to ignore. The evidence is overwhelming." A cheer erupted from the Iron Wolves, 7,000 voices raised in triumph. Cora felt tears streaming down her face as Steele pulled her into a hug. "You did it," Steele whispered. "You and Harlan. You brought them down." The next hours blurred together. Statements given to FBI agents. Medical examinations. Social workers asking questions about her placement and guardianship. The orphanage, they said, was no longer suitable. But there were foster programs, group homes. "No," Steele's voice cut through the bureaucratic droning. "She stays with the club. We have licensed homes, background-checked members. John Maddox established a trust before he died, money set aside specifically for his daughter's care. We can provide everything she needs." The social worker looked skeptical. "A motorcycle club raising a child?" "A family," Razor corrected, appearing with a folder of documents. "We've been preparing for this since we found her. Legal guardianship petition, already filed. Educational plans. Healthcare coverage. We're not asking permission, we're notifying you of our intent." It took 3 weeks of legal maneuvering, but eventually, the state agreed. Cora Maddox became a ward of the Iron Wolves Council, with Steele and Razor sharing primary guardianship responsibilities. She'd split time between California and Arizona, attend regular school, receive counseling for her trauma. But she'd belong somewhere. Finally. The ceremony happened on a warm November evening in the same desert where Cora had found Harlan. The Iron Wolves gathered, not thousands this time, just the core chapters. They built a memorial cairn from desert stones, placing photos of John Maddox and Harlan Cross at its center. Steele handed Cora a leather vest, child-sized but real, with the Iron Wolves patch on the back and beneath it, embroidered in silver thread, "Legacy." "Your father started something bigger than himself," Steele said as she helped Cora into the vest. "He believed broken people could build something beautiful together. That outcasts could become family. He was right." Cora touched the patch, then her pendant, the silver wolf she'd worn since she could remember. "When can I learn to ride?" she asked. Laughter rippled through the gathering. Razor stepped forward with a small dirt bike, painted black with a wolf on the tank. "Soon," she promised. "But first, you heal. Then we teach you everything, how to ride, how to fix an engine, how to read the desert. Everything your father wanted to teach you himself." Later, as the sun set and the Iron Wolves shared stories around a fire, Cora sat between Steele and Razor, listening to tales of her father's adventures. Each story painted him more clearly, not a perfect man, but a good one. A man who tried to make the world better and paid the ultimate price. Harlan's name came up often too, his sacrifice woven into the club's mythology. The man who'd been buried alive and lived just long enough to call the pack home. "Will you tell me about my mom someday?" Cora asked Steele quietly. "Everything we know," Steele promised. "Sarah Maddox was brave too. Keeping you safe when she had nothing. She'd be proud of you." Cora looked around at the gathered faces, weathered, scarred, hardened by life but softened by love. This strange, fierce family that had ridden across a continent for her. She thought of St. Teresa's, the cold dormitory, the tasteless food, the feeling of being nobody. She wasn't nobody anymore. She was Cora Maddox. Daughter of John. Saved by Harlan. Protected by 7,000 riders who'd blocked a highway and made the whole country listen. She was legacy. She was an iron wolf. And she was finally home. Epilogue. 6 months later, Sheriff Hendricks was sentenced to 35 years in federal prison. 14 others received sentences ranging from 8 to 20 years. The weapons trafficking network, which had operated for over a decade, was completely dismantled. Cora Maddox testified at the trial, the youngest witness in Arizona federal court history. Her testimony, combined with Harlan's footage and her father's documentation, sealed every conviction. She still had nightmares sometimes. Still woke up crying for Harlan, for the father she'd never known, for the mother who'd died keeping secrets. But when she did, Steele or Razor or one of the other wolves was always there. A hand on her shoulder. A quiet voice reminding her she was safe. On her 10th birthday, Cora rode her dirt bike through the desert, Steele following behind, teaching her to read the land like her father once had. They stopped at the ravine where it had all begun. The sand had long since filled in the hole where Harlan had been buried. But Cora placed a stone there anyway, turquoise, the size of her thumbnail, one of the treasures she'd collected before her world changed. "Thank you," she whispered to the desert, to the ghosts, to the memory of a man who died so she could live. The wind carried her words away. And in the distance, 7,000 miles across America, iron wolves fired up their engines and rode, not to war this time, but to live. To work. To love. To be the family John Maddox had always believed they could be. The pack ran together. And that changed everything. The end.